introducing our speaker today. And I know some of you have not experienced him yet, but just you wait, you're in for a treat. We love when Reverend Ray's here. So Reverend Ray, over there in the yellow, he'll be up here soon. Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. He's an ordained, non-denominational New Thought minister and an ordained interfaith minister and a licensed religious science practitioner. And he's working on becoming...
It's done.
It's done?
It's done.
Thank you. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you. Why are we happy? CSL, Celebration for Centers for Spiritual Living Minister. We are so lucky. So lucky. Thank you, Spirit. This is a long time coming. So he's also, what I wanted to say is that he's also the associate minister over at CSLDC, and they are just so lucky to have him with that. He's frequently referred to as a Renaissance man. If you talk to him, he just has a life full of various experiences, and he's always happy to share those experiences with you. He's transparent, and he lives a path of authenticity. He believes in empowered living for himself and for each one of us. So I'd like to welcome Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson.
So I'm only going to do this once. So I need everybody to get this right the first time. How are you today?
Great!
I said I was going to do it once, so I'm going to let that go. I need you to work on that. So when I come back, I need, how are you today?
Great!
Yeah, that's what I need. This is Celebration Center. Everything you do should come across as a celebration, right? So today, you're probably wondering why unicorns, elves, and perfect relationships. You're probably wondering, correct? I'm leaving. So, you ever been somewhere and you see the little guy on the corner or a young woman or whatever on the corner and they're asking, so can you tell me exactly what, and they're asking questions on the street, right? So I sort of did a questions on the street kind of thing with some folks that I know and via Facebook and other social media, and I asked them, 1, do you believe in perfect relationships? And if not, why not? If so, why? What is a perfect relationship? And it's funny that many people don't believe in perfect relationships, and I'll get to if you do or not in a moment. Many people do not believe in perfect relationships, and many of those who do, what they're describing as a perfect relationship is actually not a perfect relationship. What they're describing is a version of vampirism. Some form of codependent, I need you, right there, that vein right there. And then Tuesday, I got your vein, right? Like there's some kind of give and take of abuse. So, unicorns, we think are mythical. They're not. I saw one a couple weeks ago, but anyhow. Elves and perfect relationships. So if I ask you, do you believe in perfect relationship? Yes. I heard a few. So let's talk about what this means. 1, if I were to ask you, what is love? Can you describe it? Don't answer that, just think for yourself. And I ask this because there's a minister by the name of, and I'm going to probably pronounce his name wrong again, Rafe Ellis. And a couple of weeks ago, right before I went to the 2nd annual practitioners conference in Vegas, he posted something on Facebook that said, I went into meditation, and in meditation, this is what came to me. If you can't love the shooter, then can you really love? So, if we can't love the thing, the person, the situation, the whatever that is causing us angst, we're the clam, and got that little agitation in there, and we can't love it, even though that little agitation is the very thing that turns it into a pearl. We try to get rid of whatever we don't like, whomever we don't like, rather than stepping into an understanding that, from an etymological point of view, relate related, relative, relationship. To bring back again, to be born of or carried, to have reference of, to have a state of or of being related, to feel connected to. So, anything that we're talking about relationship, can you have a relationship with someone that you disagree with? And can that relationship with the person you disagree with be a healthy relationship? Because the thing is, ideally, if you are a state of love, you are a state of joy, you are a state of peace, then it doesn't really matter what someone brings to you. You don't get shaken to the point where you fall off. Now, do we get upset? Yes. Emma Curtis Hopkins said, in expressing this idea that God is all there is, and identifying that God is all there is nothing but God. My good is my God, and God is my good. Does that mean we get rid of penitentiaries and hospitals, etc., etc.? And she says no. Because there will be people, until they awaken to their own sense of power, they're going to misuse spirit. The principles of law in action, they're going to misuse it. And so we have to do things to redirect and recorrect. We are called to be in relationship and know this sense of alignment, so when others fall out of, we assist them in realigning. So, someone asked me, recently I'm teaching a class in Baltimore, and I was asked, do you love Trump? To which I said yes. And what I'm saying is, there is a part of us that has to acknowledge and say that God is all there is. And I love that. Do I love how whatever this persona self is? See, there's this thing, in learning to love others, we have to learn how to love ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I don't mean just myself. I mean myselves. Because I have multiple selves. The self that is a man, a cisgendered man, has its own filter of how it sees stuff. The African American man has its own filter of how it sees and relates to the world. The two-spirit man has its own method of how it relates to the artist, the teacher, the father, the grandfather, the son, the brother. All of these selves have their own way of how they relate in the world. So when something steps to it, racism steps to the African American male. Homophobia steps to the two-spirit male. How do I respond? So I see child abuse. The father and grandfather in me responds. All of these selves respond in different ways based upon how it relates to everything that happens in the world. But ultimately, in this teaching, I am being called to a different level of relationship where I have to say, in spite of all of these selves, which are lowercase s selves, there is one self, capital S self. That self is God. And from that place, I am able to see discord, disharmony, and do what I need to do, what is mine to do, to right that error. Because if I don't, then I am commiserating with, I am complicit in. So, someone in politics says, jokingly, well, don't ask him about it because he wants to hang all the gays. Well, you know, women, I mean, if it's a legitimate rape, then these are some of the paradigms that are going on in politics. But my thing is, it doesn't matter whether it's home, relationship, wherever this is going on. What am I called to do? Where am I called to go? Every single one of you is a practitioner, whether licensed or not. If you are thinking, then you are practicing this thing called life. And ultimately, what I'm called to do is, there is only one life, and that life is God's life. And that life is magnificent. That life is health and well-being, joy and perfection in complete absoluteness. And that life is my life now. And it's your life now, and your life now, and your life now, and everyone's life now. And if that's the case, then when I see something or someone that is demonstrating something that is not life-affirming, how do I love past? So what I told them the other day was, yes, I can love this person, because what I do is take name off, take title off, take skin off, take muscle and tendon off, take skeleton away, and get to the eye behind the eye, and start loving from there. And when I can start loving from there, then I can work my way backwards. Put the skeleton back. Can I love the skeleton? Put the muscle and tendon back. Yes. Take the skin off for a second. I gotta love the muscle and stuff first. It's a process. But are we willing to step into the process? Are we willing to love when it's difficult? How many parents or grandparents, or you have children in some way, shape, or form in your life? Have you ever, you may not have said this to yours, but you know of this, where someone says, young lady, if they were really your friends, they wouldn't do this. No real friend would try to get you to take drugs. No real friend would steal a car and ask you to no real friend would do such a thing. That's relationship. Are we such a friend that we will not allow ourselves to do what that friend is doing? Meaning, that friend, not a true friend, is guiding our children astray. Do we let our thoughts do the exact same thing as that wayward child and let this thought take these thoughts? Hey, you want to go for a joyride? Why not? And go about their business until they crash. Until they are doing something they're not supposed to be doing, which is not in our highest and best. Are we committed enough to this thing called science of mind? Are we committed enough to this thing called new thought? Are we committed enough to this thing called love to be able to say, I don't care who or what comes before me. My love is mine. You don't have the right or the ability to deny it. I'm going to love you in spite of your inability to love yourself. I'm going to love you in spite of your racism, homophobia, and sexism. I'm going to love you in spite of. Now, the challenging thing is, so there's a tribe mate I have by the name of, her name is Carmen Player. And she's a minister to be, even though she doesn't know that. Well, she probably knows it now because but anyhow, she's a minister. At some point, she's going to be a minister with papers. Right now, she doesn't. And one of the things she reminds is that love is not syrupy and sweet. Love is not complicit in our error. When love sees something that is not loving, life-affirming, love says, what are you doing? Stop it. Do that. Love corrects itself. Love is difficult at times. Love is powerful. And love says, what are you doing? Come here for a second. We have to have a talk. I don't feel safe in your presence. Let's talk about why. I don't like when you say this. This is what I feel. And then we dialogue, we converse. Does that mean the person's going to hear it? No, not necessarily. But if we don't step forward and say, then I am agreeing to continue to be the victim of. Now, Facebook, I've said this many, many times. How many people, this is your first time seeing me? I know there's one at least. Put your hand down, Tracy, you're my sister. So there's at least one. So you've heard me mention this several times, that Facebook is an amazing tool for prayer practice. Because I see a lot of things that are posted by a lot of people, and it reminds me, first thing that happens is, the Wolverine comic book character, for those of you who aren't familiar with Marvel characters. Wolverine, steps forward, and Wolverine wants to tear stuff apart. And then Charles Xavier, Professor X, steps in and says, Logan, calm down. What are you doing? Stop it. I I stop. Right? So I have these aspects in myself that when this one wants to go all out, this one, the divine self, says, calm yourself. Because if I'm not acting from, not responding from, not proactively moving from a state of grace and love and joy and life itself, then I am buying into this idea of separation. And if I'm buying into the idea of separation, then I am further creating the problem. So when I see something that is not life-affirming, I call it out. Do you? Are you? You don't have to answer this. Think for yourself. Do you call it out when you see it, when you hear it? When someone says something to you, it's an off-color joke that is homophobic in nature. It's an off-color comment about Muslims. It's an off-colored something about something. Do we, in this teaching, this philosophy, we are called to, invited to, a completely different realm of how we practice this thing called life. So, backtrack a little bit. I'm going to Las Vegas, right? A couple of weeks ago for the practitioner gathering. And somebody sees my tattoos, and she starts asking me, so I said, that's Hebrew, right? Yes. And, well, what does it mean? And we get to this conversation, and somewhere in there it comes out, so I'm a minister, and this and that and the other. And she says, oh, I feel better already getting on the plane. What? What? Okay, that's one. I need you to calm down with that. But then we get into conversation, and she goes into how terrified she is of going to Vegas. So I get in conversation with her. So what is it that you're afraid of? We chat, and we chat, and we chat, and we converse. And everything she threw out that was... I positioned it as, but what if? What if? Well, what if this and what if that? What if you go and it's a completely, well, what if? And somewhere in there, I saw the wheel that was spinning askew. You know, like the gyroscope. It's going, and then sooner or later it's like, and I see the internal gyroscope balance itself out. And she says, thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you. And she goes about her business. We get on the plane and whatever, and I don't even know where she sat. But the idea is, I don't know this woman. We started a conversation about tattoos. Well, what's your tattoo say? How many do you have? You've got 60. What? And somewhere in there, because I was willing to proclaim this teaching, our relationship changed. We were no longer complete strangers by the end. We still don't know each other's names, but we have a bond because I was able to see through the illusion of who she was and past the illusion of what she was projecting to even share the truth with her. So yes, we are going to be in relationship with family and friends who do not buy into what we buy into. They don't believe it. As far as they're concerned, you're in a cult. Do you care? Does that mean you are going to now stifle the truth? Because if you are stifling the truth, then can you say you are really living the principles of this teaching? So, science of mind. Yeah, I'll go with this one. In each one of us, to each one of us, through each one of us, something is personalized. And that which is personalized is personal to its own personification. Spiritual evolution should make the infinite not more distant, but more intimate. Last week we talked about the fear of intimacy. And when I spoke in BC, what I said was I borrowed a phrase that Iyanla Vanzant says when she talks about intimacy being, into me I see. Because when I can see into myself and I truly know myself, then it's easier for me to relate to another. Because I'm not relating to another based upon my baggage. I can relate to another individual simply based upon the truth. That's why, as I said before, when that experience happened in D.C. way back when, and I said the young men came up and they used the N-word and this and that, yes, my first response was, oh, if I had telekinetic abilities, I'd have flipped the truck. But my second response was pray. And that is the one that I stood in, and that is the one that I moved forward in. I don't care that people were looking at me like, oh, what's the black man doing? He's standing on the corner praying, or he's just bowing his head. Is he scared? I don't care what they thought. Because ultimately, by my willingness to be in that, to relate to the experience and relate to the people and say, they don't know who they are, so I'm going to know it for them. It was a healing presence to everyone who witnessed it. So the question is, once again, when stuff happens, as it will, because this human thing called life is going to have people and experiences for the time being that are going to show discord, disharmony, and the illusion. Are you willing to see past the character to the actor? And when I say that is, anybody in here not know who Denzel Washington is? Okay, thank you, everybody knows. Okay, so this will make it a lot easier. Denzel Washington was in a movie several years ago called Training Day. Familiar with it? Yeah. In the movie, he played a crooked cop. A horribly crooked cop. Denzel Washington received hate mail as a result of this role because people could not differentiate between actor and character. I can't believe that you've become this kind of person, and I can't believe... What? What? Are we able to see past character? Daniel Radcliffe, know the name? Yes. Where do you know the name from? Harry Potter, there you go. So, Daniel Radcliffe, once Harry Potter was done, he has taken roles that are so far from the little boy wizard because he does not want to be known as that. So he's taken some amazingly different roles, specifically to say, that is not me. Don't get it twisted. That is not me. And when you see him in all these other roles, he's such a prolific actor. Robin Williams, such a prolific actor. Wait a minute, 1 hour photo. What? Oh, I didn't realize Robin Williams was crazy. He's not crazy, it's a role. Are we able to see past the character to the actor ultimately being the same for each and every one of us? The single I, the I that I am, the capital S self, the thing itself, the one mind, that thing we call God, source, doesn't matter what we call it. That is the actor, acting upon itself. Are we able, are we willing to see past? Because that means, one, we have to be accountable. Are we willing to be accountable to the degree that a true, perfect relationship calls us to be accountable? If you saw your brother, sister, cousin, child, whoever, getting ready to take a fork and put it into the wall socket, would you say, oh, that's just Ray. Ray does silly things like that. And let Ray, no fro, afro. Like, is that what you would let me do? Or would you say, put that down. Give me that fork. What are you doing? You lost your mind? And in that moment, maybe I did lose my mind. I lost this part of my conscious mind that says safety and danger, and I'm getting ready to do something that's dangerous. Accountability says, I see, I feel, I hear, and I cannot let you continue to do what you are doing in error. Accountability. But to be accountable, am I my brother's keeper? Or am I my sister's keeper? No, I am my brother, and I am my sister. It is not my place to keep and watch. It is my place to do what I am called to do for me. And in standing in that place of authenticity for me and how I relate to me, it completely changes and transforms how I relate to another. But it calls for great accountability. The willingness to stand in this completely different phase of truth. This completely different aspect of love. Completely Because then, when we stand in the middle of the storm, something in there is being asked, click on. Because I can still engage in difficult or challenging, complex conversation about very challenging and sensitive things. But if I'm not coming from a place of transparency and authenticity, then I'm always going to have my feelings, I'm going to wear my feelings on my sleeve. I'm going to put them on the floor just for people to step on. In order to have a very difficult conversation with someone, I have to be willing to say, I'm willing for you to say whatever it is you need to say, and I have no reason to take it personally. So even if someone says, I don't like your yellow shirt, does that mean I don't like you? For them it might. But how do I receive it is based upon the relationship I have with myself and my God. That aspect of me that is infinite, eternal, indestructible, absolute, ever expanding. If I am not committed in this relationship, as with any relationship, because what are we talking about? Well, so we've been married for 10 years now. But I go out with them very, what? Wait a minute. So wait a minute, so you're not committed to me? Well, I mean, we don't stay in relationships like that. Commitment, even with a friendship. If I tell you something in confidence, because of our friendship, will it be kept in confidence? That's trust. That's commitment. I am so committed to this friendship that. Are you committed to your relationship with yourself to that degree where you won't cheat on yourself? You won't let the negative thoughts. You won't let the naysayer thoughts. You won't let the whatever these things are, the ideas of separation, those thoughts. You will not cheat on you with them. And this thing called God, you will not cheat on it with all the ideas of lowercase g God, the human aspect of, well, what's going on in the White House or here or my family or my body or any of this. I will not let this completely determine or dictate or control who and what I am and how I move through life. Because if I let that determine who I am and how I move through life, then I am cheating on this. Because what I'm saying is, this body is more powerful than spirit. This pain in my back is more powerful than God. This migraine is more powerful than God. Or do I say, with the conviction of a Joel Goldsmith, Emma Curtis Hopkins, and Ernest Holmes, that say, formulate it in your mind, affirm it, and then walk that affirmation. Walk it to the degree that it is no longer simply an affirmation, but it is a declaration and a demand. Move throughout your life demanding the quality of relationship from yourself, and you will start to see that level of relationship mirrored back at you. When you love yourself fully and intimately, the only people who will show up to you, fully show up to you, are the people who are committed to that aspect of you. Are you willing? That's what it comes down to. Am I willing to love myself beyond all error? Am I willing to be intimate with myself in order to be intimate with another? In order to be vulnerable with another? In order to be supportive of another? In order to walk this thing called truth? Let's treat. Simply sitting and allowing ourselves to breathe and be breathed. Knowing that as it said in Genesis, God breathed the breath, Ruach, the divine breath of life, and made Adam a living being. That breath, Ruach, was the divine inspiration of all of creation, bringing the one life into life as that being called Adam. So what I know and what I speak right now is that there is only that one life, that one divine spark of inspiration showing up in, as, and through all of creation. Always omnipotence, omniscience, omnipresence, love itself made flesh. And if that being, that power, that law, that love, that one mind is all there is, then it must be right here, in, as, and through this thing called Ray. But it must not simply be here in, as, and through me, but in, as, and through everyone in this room as well. For God is all there is. And all that God is, I am. So if I can say God is health, then I am health. So are we all. God is love, so am I. So are we all. God is joy, magnificence, peace, prosperity. So am I, and so are we all. So as these words are spoken, I open myself to not simply receive them, but to be them in demonstration. That every step I take and every word I speak, it is that in action. Love in action, magnificence in action, that I am able to walk the walk, that I am walking the walk of God as me, in me, moving through me and throughout all of creation. Knowing this to be true, knowing this to be so, knowing this to be my experience, I stand in gratitude. I speak from a place of deep thankfulness, filled to overflow with thanksgiving. And I take this thanksgiving and I give thanks in all that I do. So that everyone that sees me and everyone that I see, everyone that I touch and everyone who touches me, everyone that I hear and everyone who hears me, hears, sees, and feels the I am that I am. The I am that we all are.